What's up, guys? It's Benny. Monster breaking news out of the Supreme Court. The madness has finally ended. The president and commander-in-chief, whose job it is to protect America from enemies foreign and domestic, has defeated both with a massive victory inside of the Supreme Court, allowing President Trump to just freaking deport to his heart's content. Supreme Court slaps down lower court decision blocking Trump migrant deportation push. It looks like the Alien Enemies Act is back on the menu, boys. This is exactly what President Trump was using, a 1798 wartime immigration law to request immediate deportation of Venezuelan nationals, but pretty much anyone that President Trump doesn't want here and who isn't a citizen. This is how it works, right? All illegal aliens are guilty of crimes, every freaking one of them. Therefore, they should all be deported based on this ruling. It was a little too close. 5-4, Amy Coney Barrett deciding against President Trump. We'll get to that in just a moment. Justices on the higher court ruled 5-4 to grant the administration's request to lift the stay, a temporary victory for Trump and his allies. The issue in the Alien Enemies Act, an immigration law passed by Congress in 1798 to immediately remove certain migrants from U.S. soil. Prior to Trump's second White House term, it had been invoked just 3 times in U.S. history during the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. Okay, lawyers for the Trump administration had urged the court to vacate the lower court ruling that had locked Trump out of using this Alien Enemies Act, and to say that this, of course, got in the way of his Article 2 powers as president, and the judges sided with President Trump. The ruling follows the temporary order, follows a temporary order from U.S. District Judge Boasberg, who's become quite famous for ruling against President Trump in levels of absurdity, judicial absurdity, and coups, last month blocking the administration's use of the law for 14 days while he considered the case on its merits, a pause upheld by federal appeals court. Nazis got better treatment than some of the migrants deported under the law, says an Obama appointee. Both Boasberg and the appellate panel sharply questioned the administration's over Trump's proclamation invoking the Enemies Act, blah, blah, blah. At least 261 migrants had been deported that day, including more than 100 Venezuelans removed solely on the basis of the Alien Enemies Act. The deportation flights were ordered to actually be returned to America in an insane move. Judge Boasberg now completely hammered at the Supreme Court. Celebrations across the internet, but let's begin with the Trump administration. The Supreme Court sides with the Trump administration on the Alien Enemies Act. Tonight's decision is a landmark victory for the rule of law. An activist judge in Washington, D.C. does not have the jurisdiction to seize control of the President Trump's authority to conduct high foreign policy and keep American people safe. The Department of Justice will continue to fight in the courts to make America safe again, says Attorney General Pam Bondi. Donald Trump himself sounding off on this, saying the Supreme Court has upheld the rule of law in our nation by allowing the president, whoever that may be, to be able to secure the border and protect the families of the country. A great day for justice in America. Listen, you either have a president or you don't. You have no articles in the Constitution saying judges are allowed to decide wartime movements of our troops, to decide who stays and who goes in this country, to decide how to launch nuclear weapons. Also, conversely, President Trump doesn't have the power to staff the courts or to decide for the judges what they are supposed to be ruling on. That's outside of his power. Donald Trump can't walk into a courthouse, put on a black robe, grab a gavel, a wooden hammer, and decide things. That's what you call the separation of powers. No judge has the right as president to be the commander-in-chief and to be the protectorate of our borders, enemies, foreign and domestic. These powers are vested in the United States president and the president alone. Very good ruling here. Little too close, obviously, 5-4. Supreme Court sides with Trump administration will allow them to continue removing the criminal aliens. So this is the ruling right here. They got it right, thank God. And I think there's quite a bit to talk more about this on. And this is something that's, of course, flying around my social media feed. Guess who joined the 3 liberal justices to keep cartels here in America? Amy Coney Barrett. Would you look at that? Look at the way that she looks at President Trump when President Trump was when she was in President Trump's presence. You got problems here. Amy Coney Barrett, you got real issues here. She has like migrant adopted kids from Haiti. Many people saying that that might be an issue here, right? The way, particularly that like MAGA has treated Haitian migrants, like this is ultimately the problem. This is why vetting matters, obviously, in these decisions, right, as to who to nominate to the court. She has a dog in this fight, as they say, right? Perhaps. I don't know. I do know people that worked for her and worked with her, and I look forward to having them on the show and ask, like, hey, listen, has her decision for her family to like adopt migrant kids, do you think that has a bearing on this ruling? I mean, that's how the world works. Like, this is how human beings work. But also something that, like, if this was obviously going to be a big deal in a second Trump administration or even in the first Trump administration, and it's something that you need to have vetted out before you put candidates like this on the court. It's a major problem with Amy Coney Barrett. You got real issues here. You also have crazy eyes. Like, I never really noticed, but you have like the crazy eyes, you have seppuku eyes there. So you have some real, maybe she's just crazy. Amy Coney Barrett has been voting against President Trump. Is all pretty much just like a liberal on the court at this point. Guess who joined the 3 liberals? Isn't that amazing? Would you look at this? Ooh, boy. Ooh, very scary. Very, very bad. You make a lot of arguments here. I don't have time for them, but I look forward to making them with some of the people who I know worked with Amy Coney Barrett, trying to figure out why she hates Donald Trump so much and what it is that's like driving this psychosis in her. Alien Enemies Act now in full effect, says Stephen Miller. The foreign terrorists will be arrested and expelled. Stephen Miller, boss man. This is like, he's the author, effectively, of these policies, and he's got to be very happy right now. Supreme Court in 5-4 decision says Megyn Kelly lifts a restraining against Trump. Venezuelan deportee. Judge Boasberg, improper venue. The ACLU forum shopped. What this says is that the people who brought this lawsuit were looking for the most left-wing judge, the most left-wing district to try and get a result. Says detainees entitled to some measure of due process, but in the venue where they were held, not in D.C. Bye-bye, Boasberg. So this guy's been completely nuked now. Thank God. I don't ever want to listen to this guy's name ever again. Good activist judges, Democrats, and the media were sympathetic towards the terrorists. Removing violent foreign gang members from U.S. soil is common sense, of course. Yes, obviously. Mike Lee, President Boasberg, has been removed from his presidential duties. Good. Maybe we can deport him next. Hallelujah, says Juanita Broderick. Mike Davis. Major win for President Trump, presidency, and our country. Boasberg unlawfully and dangerously took the federal judiciary to the brink. 5 justices stopped him. Professor Amy Coney Barrett joined 3 liberals. What a disaster. Total lack of sound judgment. Mike Davis is just one of those people who knows Amy Coney Barrett. He clerked on the court, right? I look forward to asking him about this. Like, what the hell's going on here exactly? Amy Coney Barrett dissents. Very troubling pattern on this kind of stuff. Supreme Court ruled that under the Alien Enemies Act, Trump has total authority to continue, well, this, which is awesome. SCOTUS vacates the order for President Trump to return terrorists to America. It's amazing that we're actually like here. It's amazing that we're like in this moment, but you know what? I'll take the W's, right? I'll take the W's. Tom Homan, locking it in.
Those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process.
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
But some would say this is...
How many more terrorists do you plan on deporting to El Salvador?
Stephen Miller's just as good on this stuff.
Is it the administration's understanding that you would comply with the verbal order?
Well, again, the whole thing is just preposterous. So, as the Department of Justice has said in writing, nothing that the administration did conflicted with the court order. But there's a bigger issue here, which is the court order is patently unlawful. And if we got into a place in this country where district court judges could, for example, help is the wrong word, could interfere and direct specific targeting or non-targeting in, say, Houthi-controlled territory, could direct which general on the battlefield is going to be in charge of making which decisions, could direct, for example, we can send this military asset to this country, but not this country, could direct what intelligence we could share with Israel versus with Saudi Arabia. If a district court judge can be involved in the conduct of our foreign policy, under no definition do we have a democracy in this country. I mean,
What's the limiting factor? We keep asking this. What is the limiting factor? If a judge, a single district judge, and there are thousands of them, if every single deportation needs to go before a district judge, you don't have a country anymore. If every single district judge can enjoin a president from his presidential duties, you don't have a country anymore. You'll never stop. Unless the Supreme Court shuts this down, you'll never, ever, ever stop. Reporter asking President Trump about the Alien Enemies Act, and Donald Trump saying, this is a time of war. Biden allowed millions of people to come into this country. They're criminals, and that's an invasion. All illegal aliens need to go home because, well, they're all criminals. That's how this works. That's why they're called criminal illegal aliens. Ladies and gentlemen, a win for the American people, and for sanity, and for our Constitution. That's nice to say. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. See ya.